Hello and welcome to Cats Week. I'm Annalise Poorman. Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Caudill reported an increase in COVID-19 cases during the March 26 COVID-19 press conference. She said Monroe County is poised to see even more cases per 100,000 individuals.
Our cases per 100,000, remember that 100 is orange. And that would put us back in a yellow advisory. So I want to point that out because our current cases per 100,000 went up to 94. And this is always kind of a look back and the week prior to. So when I see that it is quite likely if we continue that we will actually be on that advisory map, we will be yellow next week. And when I did the math yesterday, we would already be at 107 cases per 100,000. So you can look at it and say, in this moment, that map may be blue, but we are really yellow. So please be aware of that. Today, we've seen another slight increase in our positivity rate. It is small, so 0.8%, but that is up from 0.4 on March 10th.
Caudill said Monroe County still averages 23 new COVID-19 cases per day, and that Monroe County would not be lessening COVID-19 related restrictions for the time being, despite Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb's actions.
The governor has announced that the mask mandate is going to go away and become an advisory for the state on April 6th. But our numbers are not going in the direction we want them to. They're going in the wrong direction. So we will not be lessening our local restrictions at this time. It means the mask requirement, being seated, distance, gathering size limits, all those things that we currently have in place in Monroe County will stay in place for the time being.
IU Health South Central Region President Brian Shockney agreed with county plans to continue restrictions. He said IU Health Bloomington recently administered its 40,000th vaccination. The Bloomington Plan Commission continued their discussion regarding multiplex allowances in the Unified Development Ordinance. During their March 29th meeting, the Plan Commission denied Susan Sandberg's amendment to restrict multiplex developments. Commissioner Andrew Seabour said more family rentals are needed in Bloomington.
I just returned to Bloomington a couple months ago, and so I am relatively new. Moving to the city, I had to do it once before. And I'm a renter, so that maybe makes me a little bit unique. And in that perspective, I guess just a couple comments is that while many renters in Bloomington are students, not all renters are students. There's a lot of folks that need to rent a home or would love to own a home but just can't or are working towards being able to do that. And as renters, it is also, I just want to note, it is hard to find a place to rent, especially if you have a family, dogs, or if you have stuff, if you've got holiday decorations, if you're into a hobby like camping, like where do you put that? A lot of student-oriented rentals are not suitable to the non-student population.
Commissioner Jillian Kinsey proposed an amendment to limit multiplex development to by-right conditional developments. Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon defined a by-right development.
There are use-specific standards listed for these plex uses that we have discussed at other hearings, and those are the ones that are related to for example, not having a history of notice of violations in the recent past, occupancy limitations based on the definition of family, design regulations, including having to be separately metered. Those would stay the same. Those are not related to whether or not the uses are permitted or conditional. So the big difference here would be that if you can meet those requirements, you do not have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and meet the 10 requirements that are required for a conditional use.
Community member Greg Alexander expressed his support for by-right duplex developments. Resident Peter Dorfman argued that the proposal would increase the Bloomington housing problem.
With respect to housing density, the Plex proposal addresses a problem that Bloomington doesn't have and offers no help with problems the city does have. Opening the core to new duplexes is an invitation to investors to buy up our shrinking stock of naturally occurring affordable housing and convert it to market rate rental apartments. If you're paying attention, you know that's what developers are building when they get the chance. Build to rent is the dominant real estate paradigm today. Bloomington doesn't have a shortage of market rate apartments. That's the heresy I promised, because the administration is selling this proposal on the premise that Bloomington urgently needs more housing. Well, with all due respect to the commissioner comments tonight, that's just false. The city is projected to need slightly more than 5,000 new units between now and 2030. That's 9 years from now. This comes from different sources, including the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. If you review the recent proposals for new construction and approvals in the city and in Monroe County, we're actually ahead of schedule to meet that demand. I'm including roughly 1,600 units of new housing under construction or committed to by the County Plan Commission. Incidentally, if you look at the BEDC's projection of need, only a minority of the units projected to be needed by 2030 are market rate. Most of the projected need is for workforce or affordable units, those that currently rent for under $700 a month.
Dorfman said the proposal would not address affordable housing needs. Commissioner Brad Whistler said neighborhoods should welcome any potential residents and that the amendment would make that easier.
But the assertion that our short-term residents or renters are somehow less important, that their opinions don't carry as much weight, I just have to reject. And, sadly, I even heard one commenter say that students weren't acceptable as neighbors. And, it breaks my heart when I hear those kinds of comments. And I think that that's just a way of thinking that we really need to get past. Renters are our neighbors. The majority of our neighbors are renters. And I really hope that we'll start to fully embrace that, renters, even student renters, perhaps especially students, as neighbors, and reject the notion that anyone's opinion matters more because of what they do for a living or how long they've been here.
Whistler said all development changes would still be required to meet design standards, setbacks, limitations, and restrictions. The Plan Commission approved the amendment on a 5-4 vote, with Commissioners Sandberg, Seabour, Israel Herrera, and Beth Kate voting against. The Plan Commission continued their final discussion until their April 1st meeting. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
There for me, every day, believing in me.
Showing me what's possible.
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
to say I can rather than I can't,
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
to finish school.
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner,
With you in my corner, I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The City of Bloomington Utilities Service Board discussed replacement of playground equipment and infrastructure at the Waldron Hill and Buskirk Park. Attorney Chris Wheeler spoke about a memorandum of understanding between the city parks and utilities departments during their March 29th meeting.
City of Bloomington Utilities will reimburse parks up to, but not to exceed $160,000 for replacement of various park infrastructure, which predominantly includes a swing set. It's a 3-bay swing set and a large playground system that had recently been installed within the last 5 years or so. It also includes some other infrastructure in the park, like concrete pads for park benches that had to be removed. And then another aspect of the MOU is identifying that the City of Bloomington Utilities has, through its contract with Milestone, included in that contract the cost of the replacement of any adjoining sidewalks that run the perimeter of the park around adjacent to the streets that box in the park.
Wheeler said CBU would also be responsible for parking lot repairs. The Utilities Board unanimously approved the MOU. Bloomington Board of Public Works approved a noise waiver for the College Mall repaving project. City Engineer Roy Ayton spoke about the project during their March 30th meeting.
EMB Paving is requesting a noise permit for nighttime work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Along the South College Mall Road from East 3rd Street to East Morris Pike. On August 4th, 2020, the Board of Public Works awarded a contract to EMB Paving for milling and repaving College Mall Road. They're now requesting to complete milling during the day and then paving the road at nighttime.
Ayton said construction would occur from April 26th through May 1st, and Public Works Director Adam Wason said all surrounding residents were notified of the noise waiver. The board unanimously approved the waiver. The Monroe County Commissioners approved a resolution regarding housing as a human right during their March 31st meeting. Affordable Housing Advisory Commission member Vox Booker read the resolution.
A resolution that Monroe County recognizes housing as a human right. By recognizing housing as a basic human right, this resolution established a vision for a community that empowers people of all ages, abilities, income, and identities with access to safe and stable housing so that they may live and thrive in Monroe County. Whereas safe and affordable housing equates to better health outcomes, while households who are cost burden cannot adequately spend money on nutritious food and healthcare costs, bringing down healthcare outcomes and impeding child development. Whereas the availability of affordable housing supports vulnerable populations, prevents crowding, limits exposure to environmental toxins, and increases the feasibility of escape and survival from domestic violence. Whereas studies show that stable, long-term housing is the single most important factor in a person's ability to recover from struggles with employment, substance abuse, and mental or physical illness. Whereas unemployment, poverty, and housing instability are broader systemic issues. Whereas affordable and accessible housing promotes opportunities for increased independence for people with disabilities. Whereas unstable housing causes children to suffer from slow development, emotional difficulties, and underachievement in education. Whereas the lack of affordable housing will ripple through our community for generations, not only in health outcomes, but also financial impacts. Whereas the Monroe County Human Rights Ordinance promotes equal opportunity in employment, housing, education, and access to public accommodation, regardless of race, religion, color, sex, national origin, ancestry, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, housing status, or status as a veteran, and prohibits familial status discrimination in housing. Whereas the human right to housing includes legal security of tenure, availability of services and infrastructure, affordability, habitability, accessibility, location, and cultural adequacy.
Booker said the resolution committed Monroe County to the advancement of affordable housing opportunities. Commissioner Lee Jones spoke of the importance of stable housing and making community members feel safe. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The Bloomington City Council Land Use Committee sent a positive recommendation to the full council for a proposed development on Hillside Drive. During their March 31st meeting, architect Doug Bruce said the proposed multi-building complex next to Switchyard Park had been planned using an environmentally conscious design.
We are looking at the townhomes being designed under the LEED for Homes certification, and all of the commercial buildings being designed under a LEED Silver. I did some research this week on the USGBC website because it was brought up that, well, there's all kinds of development projects that are just as green as this, and I completely beg to differ. There are 9 Indiana University buildings that are LEED certified or above, and all I could find were 8 other buildings that were not Indiana University buildings. This PUD amendment in itself brings 7 more buildings to that. So not every development, they might be designed as green, but they aren't pushing LEED certification, and we're making that a requirement for anything that's to be built here.
Bruce said construction would include apartments, townhomes, and commercial spaces, and that some buildings would connect to the Beeline Trail. Planner Eric Grulich said 15% of the living units would be affordable housing. Councilwoman Isabel Piedmont Smith asked Bruce about affordable unit distribution.
Do you know yet how you would distribute between townhomes and rental units? How you would distribute the affordable units?
Yeah, did you? Well, you know, yeah, we were just discussing that. There would probably be a reduction in price in the townhome. You know, that would be something we'd have to work out. But Jeff has had some experience with something like that on another project through the city. So that's probably how we would have to handle that.
So you would do some of the reduced cost units would be townhomes and some would be apartments. Is that right, Mr. Bruce?
Can you hear us? Are you there?
I couldn't hear a response to my specific question. But...
Correct.
Councilmember Matt Flaherty suggested the developers accept housing vouchers. Bruce said no official timeline was proposed for the development. The committee considered a reasonable condition to require a cool or vegetated roof on each of the new buildings. Environmental Commission member Andrew Gunther said green roofs are not suitable replacements.
With all due respect, the Environmental Commission does not consider vegetated or cool roof methods to be an appropriate replacement for lost green space. Green space is more likely to be well maintained, interacted with by residents, and effectively mitigate the impacts of climate change than green roofs. While undoubtedly a benefit to the environment and something the Environmental Commission wishes to see incorporated in more projects of this scale, we caution the council from conflating green roofs with an acceptable loss of green space. We do not believe the impact is a 1-to-1 ratio. Rather, we believe we will still suffer a net loss of benefits to accompany green space. Additionally, cool roofs, while admirable in their goal, do not replace green space by most measures. While it would help mitigate the heat island impact and assist in lowering utility costs, cool roofs do not replace green space in regards to runoff, habitat, native species, or a plethora of other benefits afforded by green space. Additionally, cool roofs tend to be cheaper, making them more attractive to petitioners. And we believe petitioners are more likely to choose the economically viable option of cool roof technology over green roofs, meaning the environmental benefit of Councilmember Flaherty's proposal is weakened even further when it comes to green space. If the council wishes to pass this petition overall, the Environmental Commission urges that this condition of approval be included in the final version. We just urge the council members not to make a habit of replacing green space with green or cool roofs.
Councilmember Stephen Volan said the development would replace a warehouse, not green space. The committee approved the reasonable condition and will discuss the development during their next City Council meeting. The Monroe County Commissioners approved extended services for compliance officers during their March 31st meeting. County Health Administrator Penny Caudill explained the extension.
We would like to renew it. And actually, Margie had just sent a draft. My suggestion would be if we could do kind of a month to month, maybe up to through June, and then we could terminate, either party could terminate early if we needed to. So it would prevent us having to come back every month to renew it. And hopefully once our numbers are good and the regulations go away, we won't need them and we would be able to end that early. I think I'm not sure if Margie's on here or not, but that's our proposal. We would like to kind of extend it and make it just a little bit easier to manage and stop when we're ready.
Chamber of Commerce member Jim Shelton said employing compliance officers means that business owners and employees will not have to confront customers. The Monroe County Election Board discussed voter registration at the Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles during their April 1st meeting. Resident Ralph Shaw spoke about registration issues.
I have heard from various people that there have been folks who have registered through the Department of Motor Vehicles, or at least thought that they had registered, and then they came to vote and discovered that they were not registered. And I'm just wondering if those are things that others of you have heard, if there's anything that can be done from this end to make sure that registrations are coming through so that people, once they think they're registered, are in fact registered.
Board member Carolyn Vanderweel said voters should always check their registration. Election supervisor Karen Wheeler said all voters should keep their BMV notice of registration.
But also they do get some notice from the BMV, and if they keep that and they bring it to us and we don't have it, we can get them registered that day because they can prove that they've done it. So that's a really good backup for them. But we can do searches, but when we have those problems, their name just isn't in the system from the BMV.
Proxy clerk Tree Martin said all registration must be completed 30 days before an election. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.